This is our dishwasher. It's a GE, and it was made in August 2018. It came with this house, which we purchased in November 2020. So when we bought the house, the dishwasher was only about 2 years old. It's actually the newest appliance in here. Although it's 2025 now, and it's approaching almost 7 years old. And as far as how it's been for the last, little over 4 years of living here, this dishwasher's been great. The dishwasher in my old house was a Kenmore from 2015, and I much prefer this dishwasher over that one. Mainly because that one took 3.5 hours on a normal cycle to complete, and if you washed it on the hour cycle, it wouldn't hardly clean. It barely cleaned anyway. It wasn't great as far as dishwashers go compared to this one, whereas this one on the normal cycle takes 1 hour and 15 minutes, and the max time you can take is like 2 hours. So I really liked that about this one, that it only takes 1 hour and 15 minutes, considering most newer ones take so much longer. And of course you can add options to make it take longer, but the shortest cycle on that Kenmore was like 2.5 hours. So for the last, 4 years, over 4 years, it's been wonderful. I really like it. As far as these newer computer-controlled dishwashers go. Of course, my preference would be the old-style one with a clicky knob and push buttons, but those are pretty much gone these days. So, I'll just show you it real quick. It looks pretty much like any other dishwasher. Now, it is kind of dirty on the inside, and I'll explain why in a bit. But, it's got a giant silverware basket with these flip-down things, which I love that silverware basket. It's awesome. But it's got plenty of room. It's got these bottle jets. It has the third rack thing, which actually is pretty useful. As you can see, the shelves are pretty heavy, and they move a little, but the newer dishwashers I've looked at, they feel a lot cheaper than this. The Kenmore we had felt much cheaper. Like, these are pretty heavy shelves. So, yeah, I really like that about it. Here's the information about it. That RL signifies August of 2018, but rinse aid and the detergent go in there. So it's a pretty standard dishwasher, but about 2 or 3 months ago, we started having a problem with it. Actually, the only problem we've had with it. What normally is supposed to happen is when you open this, it's supposed to turn the control board on. One of these will light up. This is the timer display. It'll light up. The start button will light up. Everything lights up, and it will stay that way for about 5 minutes if you leave it ajar like this, and if you close it, it'll reactivate and then stay for 5 minutes or until you start it. Of course, then if you open it, close it, it'll wait 5 minutes and then shut off, which I'll show you here. It doesn't have a ton of options, but cycles, the delay, it's got the dry, which we never use, the steam, the bottle jets, which are the red things, we never use those. The wash temp boost, wash zones, which we always left on both, and then the start button. So, we always left it on the same cycle, but obviously, if you pressed a button, it would activate the control board. It actually beeped at you, but we turned it off when we moved in because it was annoying. And then that clean light, and we have this just because it's easier than the little clean light. Especially because if you open it once after it's done and shut it, the clean light goes off. But anyway, we started having an issue with it about 2 or 3 months ago where in the middle of a cycle, it would randomly shut off. Like, just completely, like it's sitting right now. It would just be completely turned off. And within a couple minutes, sometimes it would refix itself. It would come back on wherever it left off. Other times it wouldn't, and we would have to go downstairs to the circuit breaker because this is hardwired in, shut the circuit breaker off and back on, and it would work. More recently, we noticed that sometimes the control panel just wouldn't activate. You'd have to open it and close it a few times. Well, last weekend, I went to do a load of dishes. I had it open because I was loading it, and I had noticed that the control board was off, and I figured that was just because it had been open so long. So when I shut it, expecting to see the board come back on, the board didn't come back on. So I thought, well, that's weird. So I started hitting some of the buttons, like this one. Started holding and hitting the start buttons. I opened it a couple times, closed it, you know, did all that. Held the start button for longer, pressed all the different buttons, and nothing. So I went downstairs to the circuit breaker panel, flipped the breaker, waited about a minute, flipped it back, because according to my mom, that was how we were getting it to work. And it didn't work. So that was on, I think, last Saturday, and today is Wednesday. And it has not turned on since. We've had the breaker off on, we've done everything. First, we called an electrician out here because we wanted to see, this was a couple, maybe last month, we wanted to see if something was wrong with the wiring, if there was a short somewhere, and there wasn't. They were completely like, nope, everything's fine here. So we ended up getting nothing out of that. That was a waste of money. But we verified that it's the dishwasher and not the electrical cycle. But evidently something's wrong with it because it won't turn on and there's no way to reset it and get it to turn on, whatever. So we pretty much have determined that we think the motherboard is bad, which this is another reason why these computer-controlled appliances are kind of useless. Meanwhile, our fridge over here, which is a Kenmore Elite from 2014, has the computer controls, and they have been broken since we moved in. Now it works, however, I'm going to have to make a whole video about this fridge because we're getting ready to replace this, but now the dishwasher needs work. But this, I hate this fridge. Number one, I hate it because it's got all kinds of issues, but number two, it's a side-by-side, and I don't know who in their right mind thought that this was a good design. But back to this. So we ended up going into actually the same appliance dealer that we got our Speed Queen washer and dryer from and talking to them about this, and they said, well, we don't do whatever on the weekends, but we do service, and they have a fee they charge to come out and look at it. So we called another place who basically said, you're going to have to talk to GE directly about it. But he had basically said, well, and this is a real small place that was really highly rated. He said, well, you know, I really feel bad that I can't fix it because I don't have the tool or whatever. So if you end up not being able to fix this dishwasher, I'll come put a new one in for free for you. So that was decent, but I'd really prefer to fix this. I have a feeling it's the motherboard. We scheduled someone to come out on Friday, and I'm hoping I'll be here. I do work, I think, like 6 a.m. to noon, so it'll be in the afternoon, but hopefully I'll be here for that because I really kind of want to see what's going on with it. Hopefully it's fixable and the motherboard just needs to be replaced because that's, I mean, this thing is not even 10 years old. That's nothing for a dishwasher, it seems like. So thankfully we're, you know, not inept human beings and we know how to wash dishes by hand, so it's not like this has been a real issue. It's not like, you know, knock on wood, the stove or the washing machine or something where you kind of need it. Although to be fair, our stove is gas, so even if stuff fails, you can kind of still use it. So, which by the way, this stove is from 2001. It was installed when the house was built. It's also a GE, and it has never had a single issue. We've never even replaced like the hot surface igniter. Like this thing has been perfect. So that shows you how far GE, even this microwave was made in 2015 and it's a GE and it's never had a single problem. We had a GE microwave in the old house that lasted for 15 years that it still works. It's sitting in the garage. So that shows you how far GE has fallen because they used to apparently be decent. So hopefully it's the motherboard. Obviously this is only the first video. We are about a 95% certain that if we have to replace it, we're going to get a Bosch because that's clearly the only decent dishwasher anymore. I will say my grandmother, she had a GE that was probably the same age as the stove that was junk from the beginning, but it lasted 20 years. She went the cheap route and replaced it with a Frigidaire. The Frigidaire lasted all of a year. And it was having issue. I mean, she was probably having a service call once a month. Everything from the motherboard to the shelves breaking, it was a piece of junk. So she replaced it with a Bosch. She said, I'm done messing with this. I'm getting a Bosch. My other grandparents had to replace their Maytag dishwasher that was from the 90s that had failed. They got a Bosch, and they've both been happy. So Bosches aren't cheap. I think the cheapest one is around $500. The most expensive one is like $1,200. And I looked at Bosch because the appliance store we went to from the Speed Queens, they had some Bosches, and I wasn't a fan of them, honestly. They seemed kind of cheap. Like, the build quality was really bad compared to these. Like, the shelves were much weaker, much cheaper. But if the build quality just happens to appear cheap, but they last, then I guess that's better than nothing, because the alternative is you buy a, $300 dishwasher with a knob, and you hope, but, I mean, I don't even know if you can hardly get those anymore. And the other thing, too, is that whoever installed this was colorblind, because every appliance in here, as you've seen, is white. The counters are black, the cabinets are wood, yet they picked a black dishwasher. I have no idea why. I want a white one, but my parents both kind of want stainless, because the idea is that this fridge that's dying is going to need to be replaced, and it's probably going to be replaced with something stainless. So if we replace this with something stainless, we want it to match the fridge, because the fridge is going to be the next purchase we have to make. So yeah, this is part one, but the 7-year-old GE dishwasher has failed. Hopefully not permanently, but it's really stupid that it's this new and it's having these many issues. So this is part one. Thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe, check out Isaac24.com, and yeah, there will definitely be a part two to this once it gets looked at by the GE techs. So that is it.